I mean, you can't ignore the fact that this is happening. And at this point, let's just, all right, if you want to just take color out of it, let's just consider the fact that this is just inhumane. And if this would have happened, if that was a German Shepherd up under that cop's neck, all hell would have broke loose in America.
Can you imagine?
Oh my God.
Girl, the way that she was yanking that dog, I was like,
you know what I said? What if
quickness?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm gonna come back to you, Adelia.
Oh, you good? You good?
What if I was thinking, I had this whole scenario in my mind. What if it was you know how police officers will just run the red sometimes, put their lights on just to get through the intersection, and then they just drive normally? What if some citizens decided to do a citizen's arrest? And let's say they pulled this cop out of his car and they started putting their neck on a cop, black, white, Hispanic, doesn't matter. Asian cop, doesn't matter. Do you think that they would have walked around free for how long? 4 or 5 days? You think they would have walked around for free?
They would have walked around free for 5 minutes.
Right.
They were black.
They didn't get shot at the scene.
Down on the ground.
That's how I'm gonna rap on this for y'all.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Okay. Dummies discuss. Dummies. People like what's all the fuss. Dummies. You about to miss the bus. Dummies. And we're trying not to cuss. So this is two friends that kinda smart but really dummies. Talking it should never stop. And like the Energizer Bunny, he thinks he can get a yard. He has delusions, he's a star. Chances addicted to Star Trek. And Captain Jean-Luc Picard. His plate is full of a little like your old grandmother's stuff. And the others know so old school like David Ruffin. Shouts out to all the betas. Shouts out to my boy Jared. Hottest podcast up and coming. If you like it, go and share it. Dummies discuss. Dummies. People like what's all the fuss. Dummies. You about to miss the bus. Dummies. And we're trying not to cuss.
Yeah, man.
Chance, let me ask you, I'm going to ask both of you guys.
Yeah.
Because Kaela said something. She said, go talk to, no. Was it Verneisha? You said, go talk to other white people. Have you, Chance, do you talk to other white people about this? What happened?
Yeah, I actually had a discussion with Banfield today. We were talking, and I've had with this particular person, I'm not going to use their name.
Yeah, of course.
But with this particular person for a while, we had you
already threw Banfield under the bus, but go ahead.
No, it has nothing to do with him. But I was over at his house and his wife was like, man, there was a point in time in Facebook, like I was going back and forth with a relative, like, and she was like, you were just like throwing down, like just we were just back and forth the whole time. And at a certain point, it was just, I couldn't with that person anymore. But yes, absolutely. I don't like throwing people under the bus that I've had the conversations with, but like, yes, there's been frequent conversations where it's like.
What's a conversation like? I don't know. Is that a dumb question? Like, give me an example.
It's conversations of like, hey, you teach at a school that's predominantly African American,
right?
And the reason why you're struggling with kids is you're making no connection with them because you're not reaching out to them to understand what their perspective is, what their culture is, any of that. And if you want to get there with the kid, then that's what you need to do. And if not, why are you here? Not like you need to move on, but I need you to reconsider why you're even in this building. Like, is it just to teach like the material that's in the book, or are you trying to make an impact on someone's life?
Get a paycheck or something?
Yeah.
And I know every conversation is different, but like, what is the person you're thinking of right now? What is their response to that, to you approaching them like that? What do they say? Like, oh yeah, I hear what you're saying, or...
It can be a hear what you're saying. It can be like lip service, like, yeah, you're right. Or it could just be blowing you off. Like it comes in different forms. Like it just depends on who you're talking to. I've never found that arguing, like I said, going back and forth on Facebook and just arguing with someone. I've never felt like getting into like an actual emotional argument about something that controversial with somebody will ever change their opinion. Like I've told people, like, hey, if you really want to know, if you're like, you don't agree with Black Lives Matter, cool. Let's table that you don't agree with it, but why don't you come with me to the next one and then make your own judgment on it? Like, I'm going to invite you to it, and then let's continue the discussion. Because if we're just going to sit here and argue back and forth in this never-ending cycle,
nobody's never going to
change anything. Let's experience it, and then let's talk about it.
Lauren, when you speak to your white friends, what are those conversations like? What are the challenges?
It depends quite a bit. As I think the room has said, it depends on kind of where we're starting. So a lot of conversations I've had recently, also because we self-select to people who agree with us, I feel like I haven't seen a ton of what I would clock as like actively white nationalist rhetoric on any of my social media, which it might be a problem that I need to rectify. But I've been talking a lot with white liberal Democrats, specifically in relation to their conceptualization of looting and why it's morally wrong, which leads us into deeper conversations about capitalism and humanity, and what's important. But I think ultimately the most effective conversations I have are when people are interested in listening, when people are okay with doing a little bit of reading and a little bit of thinking before they respond. I agree with Chance that vitriol is rarely effective, but at the same time, I think as a white woman, it is I feel like I can help the most when I have the patience for that and can sit there and listen and say, I'm hearing that you're frustrated. I need you to think harder about that. Or I understand that you're seeing this from this perspective, but I'd like us to take a step back. I'd like us to increase our empathy a little bit, think harder. You
and I had that conversation. I remember we had a conversation where I was dealing with a relationship, and we were having an argument because I was expressing to you about how I felt about my dog, and you asked me a question where I was like, we have to stop this conversation, not because I was uncomfortable, but I was like, I have to think about what you just asked me. And I was like, let me get back to you, and then we'll continue the conversation. And we actually, after that, we both understood each other.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. And I think it gets difficult to Mr. Finnezy's point that ideally it wouldn't be a situation where Black people are forced to prove their humanity and worth. And I think that plays so much into these conversations. Again, that privilege, I think in a lot of people's minds, is the water that surrounds them. But doing things like that is truly saying, prove to me that you're just like me, that we have the same feelings and that we are both human. And also I think acknowledging that while we all share the common thread of humanity, our experiences are vastly different, based on international structures and institutions that are built explicitly for us to be complacent in existing race relations and capitalist relations.
Yeah. Who's more open to hearing your white women friends or your white male friends?
After today, I don't know the answer, actually.
Uh-oh.
My own personal opinion. I think that my own personal experience, not even opinion, white women will do the emotional labor for white men and take on their burdens and their struggles and apologize to your Black face until their last dying breath, and thus allow their husbands, their brothers, their sons to not have to do any sort of emotion or intelligence or use a thinking cap. So I think that it depends on the person, but to me, I have had more productive conversations with white women than I ever have with white men, but I also don't like to engage with white men on those kinds of conversations because, again, it's my job to educate you. And in fact, you couldn't even fathom the things that I go through on a daily basis as a Black woman in predominantly white spaces. Like, to just exist in a space would just break their fragile little minds, I think. At least for the ones that I'm specifically talking about.
Hmm. Adelia, what about you? What's up, Adelia?
What's up?
Adelia looks like she's already came in and like this is already heavy.
Yeah, like
I know I told Verneisha and Adelia, that's what we're talking about tonight. So
Yep.
Adelia,
and it's heavy. That's the
well,
reality.
I want to ask you both of those questions real quick. Well, I want to ask you one about being a mother of a Black boy.
Mm.
All right. But I want your white friends, male friends, white female friends, or just co-workers or whatever, do you have those conversations with them? First off, and who's easier, more receptive or open to even having the conversation or talking or whatever?
I have to agree with is it Kaela? White women, my white women friends, my white female friends. And even with that, sometimes I'm the initiator of the conversation. And that's what concerns me with this, because it's almost like, I mean, you can't ignore the fact that this is happening. And at this point, let's just, all right, if you want to just take color out of it, let's just consider the fact that this is just inhumane. And if this would have happened, if that was a German Shepherd up under that cop's neck, all hell would have broke loose in America.
Can you imagine?
Oh my God.
Girl, the way that she was yanking that dog, I was like,
You know what I said? What if?
Quickness.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm gonna come back to you, Adelia.
Oh, you good? You good?
What if I was thinking, I had this whole scenario in my mind. What if it was you know how police officers will just run the red sometimes, put their lights on just to get through the intersection, and then they just drive normally? What if some citizens decided to do a citizen's arrest? And let's say they pulled this cop out of his car and they started putting their neck on a cop, Black, white, Hispanic, doesn't matter. Asian cop, doesn't matter. Do you think that they would have walked around free for how long? 4 or 5 days? You think they would have walked around for free?
They would have walked around free for 5 minutes.
Right.
they were Black.
If they didn't get shot at the scene,
down on the ground.
if they didn't get shot at the scene, you know how much backup is coming?
Right.
Officer down.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
But going back to what you were saying, Adele, I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine.
Males, white females, who's more receptive?
Yeah, I would have to say within my group, it would have to be white females, and sometimes I'm the initiator of that conversation. I recently met a young lady though that really impressed me, and what I mean by impressed, to be honest, because it's something that I hadn't really encountered, and it's sad that I can count on one hand how often I've encountered this, but twice is where I've encountered that they initiated the conversation to say something is wrong here, and some people may take it wrong, but I almost feel guilty for my people acting that way, and it's not right. And they stood up and called their white friends out, and was like, the fact that y'all have said nothing, the fact that you haven't even posted it, the fact that you haven't brought it up in our conversations bothers me. And they've said that, and they're like, well, if you won't have the conversation, then I'll have the conversation. And it's amazing how they're treated when they initiate that conversation, which is very unfortunate.
Is that, you said that's not a conversation? Where am I going with this? Let me ask the other. How do you, as a Black mom of a Black boy in the United States, like what kind of conversations? Because how old is your son now?
11.
11. Have you had to have the talk with him already? He's 11.
Yeah.
Like did he ask any questions? Is like when you watched, did you watch any of what went on last night?
Yeah, I did.
Was he there with you?
No. He we were on the phone because he was at my aunt's house.
Okay.
But we did talk about the things that were happening and the things that were going on. And I'm gonna tell you what I've observed with him, which bothers me, is when we get out of the car or when we're somewhere, his eyes are often shifting, like very fast. He's looking at what's happening in the store. He's looking at people pulling up next to us. We can't even come home. And I'm being honest. We can't even come home without, like, if there's a car behind us, he'll say, Ma, can you go back out?
What do you mean?
And like, can you leave
Like
and let's come back so that car isn't behind us?
Gotcha.
And so I had to have a conversation with him because initially I was like, well, he's just being careful. But then it started turning into, what seemed like paranoid. And so I started talking to him about it, and he said that he wanted to make sure that nobody was trying to harm us. He said it doesn't seem as though people are being safe, and it doesn't seem like people are protected. So I want to make sure that you're not being hurt because I wouldn't know what to do. These are the words that's coming out of his mouth at 11. And so the way that he's processing what's happening on the news, the way that he's processing what's happening in our world is not that he's seeing color. He's seeing that the world isn't safe.
Gotcha.
And because he's 11. And so for him, it's innocent, but then when I ask him, and when I did have the conversation, I said, AJ, what color do you think that you are? He said, yellow. He's 11.
All right.
He didn't say black. He didn't say white. And then when I said, well, no, black or white. Well, I'm closer to white. Well, yeah. You are, but I had to explain to him how people in America look at him. And for him, it was like, I don't get it. Honestly, he was like, I don't get it.
Was that this year? Was it?
And to me, it hurt to even. Why do I have to explain to you? Yeah, it was this year. I mean, and we've kind of been having a conversation because I have to prepare you.
Yeah.
when you leave the four walls of my home, our home, whatever, and you go to college, wherever that may be, I have to have a conversation with him so that he doesn't get so comfortable, which is very unfortunate, but you don't get so comfortable. I don't care if you have predominantly all white friends. You can't get comfortable as if you have the same access and privilege they have. And I don't like necessarily using that word privilege, but for lack of a better word, you can't do what they do. Unfortunately, you can't justify, being pulled over as much as educated as you may be, the same way they can. And it's just the reality of the situation. So it's frustrating. It makes me mad. It makes me want to move to Germany, to be honest.
Well, they got their own problems over there too.
Yeah, and they do, and they really do. Trust. I have a friend over there that lives over there, but just in talking to him about some of just the climate, he said that part of the reason why he moved over there, not saying that they don't have their own issues, but part of the reason why he moved over there is because he doesn't have to deal with it as nearly as he has to here in America.
I tell people all the time when I lived in Germany that I never thought about race ever. And I moved to Georgia finally when I was 14 years old. So I think I was old enough to, process at least a little bit of what's going on around me, but I never thought about race. It's why I'm so fascinated with it now. That's why I dedicated most of my life to it and got my degree from Morehouse in, African-American history, because I never understood America's fascination with race because I didn't really grow up with the history in Germany, right? Now, Germany has its own history.
Yes, it does.
Some examples in Germany that aren't the best, right?
It does.
I didn't understand the whole race thing until I got to Georgia. Like it smacked me in the face right away. Because when I was 14, if somebody asked me what color I was, I would have said I'm black and white. Because I am. Like my dad's black, my mom's white. I still consider myself that, but it was real weird that all of a sudden that's not how I realized that's not how America views me.
You're black.
Right.
I'm black. I'm just light skinned. I'm a light skinned black dude. Verneisha, I'm prepping you because I want to know, as a mother of a black girl, have you had this conversation?
Oh, Lord.
If not, do you plan on having it? Do you think it's the same as, for a black boy or whatever it may be? But I'm going to come to you on that. But going back to you, Dr. Singleton, how many black people were in your program?
In my class? So
yeah, in your class.
So in my year at Georgetown, there's me and one other black woman. In my program, there are 4 of us total.
Out of how many?
Out of 85 people. So there are some years where we don't have, normally we try to sneak that one in, but some years we don't.
Wow.
Yeah.
4 out of 85.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry, I'm kind of okay. Mind boggled real quick. Okay.
I've been in school for like 22 years, and I've never had a black professor. Never had a black man professor, a black woman professor. Not a single one.
Have you been asked to speak on the behalf of all Black people in America on, during class? And
what do you mean? That's my job. That's why I'm here. We have 4 of us so that we can just rotate out.
Right.
We rotate in case we get tired. We can tag each other in. Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
Verneisha, has your daughter asked what's going on TV, or mommy, what's wrong? Why do you look like, what kind of conversations, if any, are going on?
Man, listen, like I already had to tell my mini revolutionary Angela Davis. Yeah, Taylor's.
How old is she?
Taylor's 12.
12, okay.
And Taylor, unprompted by me, I just want to put that disclaimer out there. I went in her room one day, and I think this was right after Ahmaud. So she was like, I'm going to do something, mommy. I was like, oh, okay. I'm really upset. Fine. She went in there. She wrote all of the names on the posters. I did not tell her to write this. She wrote all of the names. Black Lives Matter, America, like all of this stuff. And I was just like, wow, okay, so we need to have a dialogue. Hey, and I listened to one of her conversations that she was having with her friends about privilege, and
Black friends,
her white friends, because she's multicultural, because I make sure that
absolutely,
you ain't got all Black friends, because that ain't good, and you all white friends ain't good for you just being the one Black person. You need to have a healthy mix. Her white friends were using the term Karens for like Karens.
Okay.
Like
poolside pet.
Karen.
Our poolside pet.
Yeah, Karens. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So she was like,
Becky.
yeah, you're being such Karens and all this other stuff. Like just kept saying it. And I was like, yeah, so I understand that y'all think that it's funny and that, you exchange it evenly with each other. However, that is a offensive term to some people. And she was just like, well, they say it all the time. I was like, they can say it and you cannot. And she was like, well, why can't I say it? And I said, because you're Black. And she just looked for a minute and she was just like, but we're friends, and they say it, I say it, Amani says it, Amani's Black. And Lily says it, Lily's white. I was like, it's just the way it is. I know that doesn't make sense to you right now, and we can continue to have conversations about this because we have an ongoing dialogue with race, sex, all the stuff. Like literally, we have several conversations, and they've been happening since age 7, 5, 6, something like that. So like, it's an ongoing dialogue.
It scared me for a second, but I'll get back to why.
Yeah. Parenting. There ain't no book. I wish there was. But I was telling her the importance of being aware, because all spaces ain't safe. They're not.
True.
And I need her to understand that now, rather than later.